Well, welcome back to the council meeting, the 20th of July. And apologies, we've had some serious technical difficulties. If we have any further significant delays, we will reschedule the meeting. And also a special shout out to our Indian correspondent for today. Live streaming. As the meeting chair, I give my consent for this open council meeting to be streamed live, recorded and published online in accordance with council's live streaming policy and governance rules. The chair and or the CEO have the discretion and authority at any time to direct the termination or interruption of live streaming. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances where deemed relevant. Circumstances may include instances where the content of debate is considered misleading, defamatory or potentially inappropriate to be published. Attendees are advised that they may be subject to legal action if their actions result in inappropriate and or unacceptable behaviour and or comments. Thank you. Virtual meeting statements. Part 12 of the COVID-19 temporary measures of the Local Government Act 2020 allows council meeting attendance by electronic means. The requirement of the meeting being open to the public is satisfied by the meeting being streamed live to council's internet. In the event of technical issues with the live stream, the meeting will be adjourned. Councillors are deemed as being in attendance if they can hear proceedings, they can see other members in attendance and can be seen by other members. They can be heard to speak. Please turn off all mobile phones, or in the case of an emergency, please advise the chair and switch to silent mode. Basco Shire Council acknowledge the Bunurong as traditional owners and custodians of the lands and waters and pays respect to their elders past, present and emerging, for they hold the memories, the traditions, the culture and law. Basco Shire Council celebrates the opportunity to embrace and empower the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island communities in their diversity. Basco Shire Council will create opportunities for future recognition and respectful partnerships that will honour the traditional owners and custodians and Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. I call on Councillor Bauer to read the councillor statement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All members of this council pledge to the Basco Shire community to consider every item listed on this agenda based on the individual merits of each item, without bias or prejudice, by maintaining an open mind and disregarding councillors' personal interests so as to avoid any conflict with our public duty. Any councillor having a conflict of interest in any item will make a proper prior disclosure to the meeting and will not participate in the debate or the vote on the issue.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. There are no apologies for today. We have two declarations of interest. Councillor Bauer has declared an interest in relation to the petition Cows Foreshore. Councillor Sari has declared an interest in respect to the governance rules. Go to the council meeting held on the 15th of June 2022. Councillor move and a councillor second the resolution of the minutes of the council meeting held on the 15th of June 2022 be confirmed. Councillor Kent and Councillor Bauer. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Public question time. That brings us to public question time, and I shall read out the questions and the CEO will give the responses. First question is John Kuzma. Forecast actual 2021-22 grants operational $11,788. I presume the M is a misprint. Council's budget 2022, it is 20 million, is it? Mm-hmm. Okay, 11, I'll say that again, operational 11,700, no, that's not right.
He's made a mistake.
Okay, there's a mistake.
If I'm to try now, Mr. Mayor, you're going to struggle with that.
Council's budget 2022-23 reports a comprehensive income statement, forecast actual 2021-22 grants operational 11,788 million. As I say, I think there's an obvious typo there. I request Council to publish a detailed tabulation showing how the figure were expensed or not fully expensed. CEO.
Through the Mayor, Council assumed that the submitted means $11.78 million. Council's year-end financial statements will include a note that discloses the details or source of the operating grants that Council received in the 2021-22 financial year. financial assistance grants from the Commonwealth, which are untied to any specific program and can be applied as a consolidated revenue funding source, make up over 60% of operating grants revenue.
Second question is Kevin Griffin, Basco's Ratepayers and Residents Association, Inverloch Shared Pathway. 3 years after approving the Inverloch pathway from Veronica to Grove Street, Council has only just now reached the halfway point at Ozone Street. How many more years will it take Basco's Council to complete this simple but essential community asset through to Grove Street? CEO.
Through the Mayor, Council recognises that the completion of this path is a high priority for the community and is keen to see it finalised as soon as possible. Stage 3A of the Surf Parade shared path was completed in June 2022. Planning for Stage 3B is underway, but is reliant upon the completion of the Coastal Hazard Assessment being undertaken by the Department of Environment, Land, Water and Planning. This work is anticipated to be completed by August 2022, which will help inform the design for Stage 3B.
The next question is Melissa Dagg, Capital Works Projects Budget. Council reported 31/3/2022, 185 capital works projects. Previously, Council stated unbudgeted capital grants were to go to shovel-ready capital projects. Would Council please disclose what unbudgeted grant monies has been allocated to the 185 projects and give names of the project funds were allocated to as of the 31/3/2022? CEO.
Through the Mayor, a list of unbudgeted grant funding will be published in the minutes.
Question 4 is from John Warrillow. Plant, machinery and equipment. Each year Council sets aside and spends money towards plant, machinery and equipment. I ask Council to provide and publish a listing of all current vehicle and machinery with their asset values. CEO.
Through the Mayor, for security purposes, Council does not publish a list of plant and equipment. Council's annual financial statements disclose the opening and closing values of its plant, machinery and equipment, as well as annual movements that relate to additions, disposals, write-offs and depreciation. This level of disclosure is in line with the requirements of the Australian Accounting Standards AAS 116, Property, Plant and Equipment.
Question 5, John Kuzma, Council tenders. Would Council please inform where can I read and obtain a PDF file containing a running listing of all of Council tenders with costs which would include tenders of all projects and work currently? CEO.
Through the Mayor, Council tenders are available through the e-tendering portal, e-tender box, available on Council's website. All contracts awarded, including the total value, are reported to Council.
Question 6, Kim Lightfoot, unallocated surpluses. Council reports forecast actual 2021-2022 unallocated surplus funds. The new 2022-2023 budget informs 6,572 million, which I think is again as a mistake, of the unallocated surplus positive. Why are the figures for unallocated surpluses so high when Council's new borrowings are 26,689 million?
Through the Mayor, Council has responded on the basis that the submitter meant to reference 6.572 million and 26.689 million respectively. Council's 22-23 funding impact statement budget reflects a balanced position after allowing for capital expenditure, borrowings and reserve movements. Council's income statement has a budgeted surplus of 2.237 million, and this surplus helps support Council's capital works budget and the balanced funding impact statement result.
Question 7, Melissa Dagg, unreasonable questions. What constitutes an unreasonable question list?
Through the Mayor, clause 53.6 of the Governance Rules 2020 sets out the reasons a question may be disallowed.
Question 8, Graham Jolly, Tracks and Trails. Council has published a draft Tracks and Trails document which identifies existing and proposed tracks and trails. Council seeking public comment. Would Council please provide participation numbers for the current tracks and trails for the last 12 months? CEO.
Through the Mayor, As tracks and trails across the Bass Coast Shire are managed by multiple land managers, it is not possible to achieve accurate participation numbers across all tracks and trails in the Shire. Council's active Bass Coast plan has identified that walking and cycling are the highest participatory recreational activities across Bass Coast Shire, with 51% of residents identifying walking, running or cycling as their favourite recreational activity, and 59% of residents visiting a green space at least once per week. Additionally, impacts of COVID have highlighted an increase in cycling on shared pathways by 269% since 2020.
Just make the preamble here that this question appears to have the same error as two other questions that we've read out, but I'll read it out as it's written. Council's budget 2022-23 reports income 26,689 million of new borrowings and 12,264 million paid on the principal, and only 5,350 million of the borrowings for infrastructure works, leaving a balance of approximately 9 million. What is the 9 million balance going to be allocated towards?
Through the Mayor, Council has assumed that the submitter meant to use the figures of 26.689 million, 12.264 million and 5.350 million respectively. Council has decided to utilise an additional 14.9 million in new borrowings to fund the Capital Works program. This includes deferred borrowings related to the Cows Cultural and Community Centre. Council is also refinancing 11.7 million in loans already held at 30 June 2022.
That brings us to petitions, joint letters, deputation and correspondence. And I ask on E1, petition Safety Risk Park Parade Road, Cape Paterson. Other councillor move and second the resolution. Councillor Lang. Councillor Lark. Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr.
Actually,
Mayor.
we usually just put that, don't we? We usually
What's
just put that. Do you wish to speak to it?
Yes, I wish to speak to the motion.
No.
Petition.
The petition. Yes. Can you clarify, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, you've got the call.
Okay, we're good.
We're having difficulties today, so just bear with us.
The technical difficulties have transferred over, so apologies for my headspace. I'm looking forward to the outcome of the report that will arise from the August 2022 meeting. Park Parade is in a very awkward position in the community because it has almost become a thoroughfare as a result of development within Cape Paterson, and it's also the site of a very popular park. So I look forward to meeting with some of the petitioners and also hearing the report that will come to August 2022 meeting. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Councillor Lark, do you wish to speak, or shall we put the motion?
I'll just say a couple of words. I had connection with Scenic Drive for more than 20 years through my mother and father-in-law owning property in Scenic Drive, and we always were extremely aware of the danger of that intersection and surrounds. So look forward to the report, as Councillor Lang has already said.
Thank you, Councillor Lark. Is there any other councillor wish to speak? Otherwise, happy to put that motion. Those in favour?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Very, very briefly, can I add one more thing really briefly?
Seriously, yes, go ahead.
Yes. I just wanted to quickly add that the petitioners have made it clear in their petition that this is not an approach to do a sealing of the road by stealth. It's about recognising the safety concerns on that intersection and that road in particular.
Thank you. Those in favour? Against? Carried. This brings us to a E2 petition to protect cows foreshore, and we have a council who's nominated an interest on this. So ask Councillor
I'll
Bauer.
leave the chamber. I'll leave if you
drop
can
out
call
of the
me. when
meeting
you're-
and we'll give you a call, bring you back in after this is dealt with.
Okay, bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you. Can I have a councillor move and a councillor second the motion as in the agenda? Councillor Kent, Councillor Holstead. Are you happy that we go to a vote on this, Councillor Kent? Councillor Holstead? Yeah. Those in favour? That's carried. We'll just wait for a minute while we get Councillor Bauer back.
Hopefully with the gremlins, we get him back. Councillor Lark, the Eiffel Tower's hanging out the top of your head when you lean forward like that. Beautiful backdrop, beautiful backdrop.
Yes, it's one of my favourite places.
While we're waiting for Councillor Bauer, it's one of those ones, Councillor Lark, that it doesn't matter how many times you visit Paris, you still end up with another 400 photos of the Eiffel Tower.
Okay, because we've got a couple of procedural things, while we wait for Councillor Bauer, we'll keep it moving along. So there were no notices of motion. And Mayor and Councillor reports online, my report will be made available in the minutes, and it's been our practice at these meetings that councillors' reports will also be reported in the minutes. That brings us to a statement. I'm going to call on Councillor Tassari to read out a statement in relation to John Fleming.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. If I can, it gives me, I guess, pride to be able to sit here and acknowledge some of the life of John Fleming. I was fortunate enough, terrible wording, was at John's funeral last week, and it was a fitting funeral for a man that has achieved so much in his lifetime. On behalf of Bass Coast Shire, I would like to acknowledge the recent passing of John. John was a councillor and a mayor of the borough of Wonthaggi prior to the amalgamation. He also served for 3 years as one of the 3 commissioners of the new Bass Coast Shire Council. John was a member of the State Coal Mine for over 20 years, and he gave more than 50 years service to the CFA and to the Lions Club of Wonthaggi. Everybody that lives in Wonthaggi or has had anything to do with Wonthaggi would be well aware of the contribution that John, and I must say John and his wife Diane and the Fleming family had to the making up of Wonthaggi as a township. John has made an outstanding contribution to Wonthaggi over many years, helping to make it the town that it is today, and he'll be sadly missed by our John Fleming.
Thank you, Councillor Tassari. Councillor Lang, call on Councillor Lang to make a statement. Ian Ritchie, Coordinator of Mitchell House.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. We are deeply saddened and extend our condolences and deepest sympathy to Ian Ritchie's family and friends for his sudden passing recently. As the coordinator of Mitchell House, which is Wonthaggi's neighbourhood centre, Ian lived and breathed his passion for social justice, imparting his knowledge and experience to improve the lives of many, whether someone was new to the country, needed support to get their next meal, or even just to fill out a form. Ian was on the front line for supporting the most vulnerable members of our community, and he really did his utmost to make Mitchell House and the Harvest Centre as warm, comfortable and inclusive as possible. He rarely sought the limelight, and he did all his work with great humility. He was a friend and enormous support for many people in the community. He had a wicked sense of humour, and I was really lucky to have eaten his incredible scones. He was an excellent cook. So Ian will be very sorely missed. Valet Ian Ritchie.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. I'll call on Councillor Serve to make a statement in respect to Ruth Heffer.
Good. Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to tribute a veil to Ruth Heffer. Ruth passed away on July the 9th, aged 95. She will be sadly missed by her family, her friends and her Waterline community. Ruth was a long-time supporter of tourism in Bass Coast. Her family business is held in high regard throughout the state's tourism sector. The Maru Koala and Animal Park has been a Bass Coast Business Award winner over many years and has mentored many businesses to step up to tourism in Bass Coast. Ruth was a driving and founding force in creating such a well-loved business, and she will certainly be sadly missed. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lasserve, and I note that Councillor Bauer is back. Welcome back, Councillor Bauer, and just in time for the reports requiring council decision. H1, Proposed Development Plan Endorsement DPO 3 for 10 to 20 Grantville, Alvie Road, Grantville, and I call on Mr. Sturton to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to present a proposed development plan to Council for endorsement. The subject land is located at 10 to 12, 14 to 16 and 18 to 20 GrantvilleGlen Alvie Road, Grantville. The development plan depicts the road layout of the proposed development and the creation of a pedestrian accessible council reserve. All future detail of the proposed development would be subject to a future planning permit application. The development plan was advertised and received 2 submissions which have been addressed in the report. It is recommended that Council resolves to endorse the proposed development plan, subject to the conditions as outlined in the report. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Sturton. Can I have a councillor move and a councillor second the motion? I call on, there's Councillor Lasserve and a seconder.
Mr. Mayor, I've got an
Sorry.
alternative motion.
Oh, okay, so an alternative motion. Okay, Councillor Lasserve, I take it we have that and we'll put it on the screen. Is there a seconder to, we usually ask you to actually tell us what it's about and then seek a seconder. So without arguing the case, Councillor Lasserve, can you just tell us what this is about?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The council refuses to endorse the proposed development plan, referenced as W2079, dated 22nd of February 2022, under the Schedule 3 of the Development Plan Overlay in the Bass Coast Planning Scheme, for the following reasons. And you can see that on your screen.
Okay, we can. So thanks very much, Councillor Lasserve. Is there a seconder to that alternative motion? I can't. Councillor Kent, did you second that? Is he frozen?
Yeah, no, he's nearly lost his arm. He's waved that hard.
Okay.
Yes, I did. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. All right, Councillor Lasserve.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We seek good planning and development outcomes for the community of Grantville, and it's for these reasons that I put forward this alternative recommendation to the development plan at GrantvilleGlen Alvie Road application at this stage. Firstly, I agree we need a development plan overlay for this area, as this is the last lots without one within the Grantville area. However, this does not address the concerns of the vegetation removal, the private waste services, the networking and road infrastructure. The application is within the town boundaries and is in the general residential zone. It is proposed that the 20-lot subdivision will be on only 1/3 of that development plan overlay 3 by the applicant, which is lots 10 to 12. This is considered a concept in design only at this stage, but further, I'd like to add that there is no evidence the other 2 landowners on lot 14 to 16 and lot 18 to 20 are interested in considering this subdivision. Council is required to endorse the development plan overlay, yet the report states that the proposal is not an ideal outcome, and that's on page 17 of the report. I have some great concerns regarding the removal of vegetation, that's 47 native trees. Although I do acknowledge that there will be 18 street trees planted in the place in that little subdivision, and at 20 lots, by all those lots are estimated to be 300 square metre blocks. I believe residents will be unlikely to even plant a tree in their backyard. So it is a vegetation loss. I believe that the road layout does not take into consideration the whole of the development plan overlay and its interconnectivity for a good community outcome. And at this stage, the 20 by 300 square metre lots in the proposal doesn't give an outcome to the whole area. And I'm not sure if the other services, there's waste service issues as well, but whether or not that we could have CFA emergency services in access.
Are you nearly finished, Councillor Serve? I'll ask you to wrap up.
Yeah, I am. One of the critical parts of this, council's waste service can't access the proposed 20 allotments. And I understand that we need to have affordable housing in our residential areas, but to set future landowners up with the burden of having to use contract waste service is not ideal and not a reasonable outcome. All ratepayers within Bass Coast area should have access to the benefit of council's waste service.
Okay, Councillor Serve, I'll wrap you up at that point. Sorry, you'll get another go if you take your right of reply. Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick reply. Within the report from council officers, there's a number of places where comments are made that different things could be considered acceptable. The problem I have with this is that if we approve this today, the community will not have a right of reply as to whether what the developer wants to put in place in the future is acceptable. So we will never know whether the community accepts what's going to be put in place in the future. I also say that in regards to the small blocks, we need to offer some low-cost housing, but I have concerns when I believe it's an acceptable process that we have the smaller blocks integrated into normal neighbourhoods. And I'd honestly like to see the developer come to council in the future and make a presentation as to what he wants to achieve. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. Any other councillor wish to speak to this? Councillor Halstead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The application for subdivision is subject to a development plan overlay that encourages an integrated approach between the three landowners, one of which wishes to develop reasonably quickly and two others that have negotiated in good faith but appear not to be in any hurry to progress. It is clear that council supports a proposal for residential development in this location. However, is the one before us the best possible outcome for the broader community of Grantville? Unfortunately for the applicant, I think we can do better. I'd like to see a proposal that creates a more integrated outcome as is required under the DPO, one that does provide for council waste collection, one with a greater retention of vegetation, and one that has a better, safer access from the estate to Glen Alvie Grantville Road. I would even go as far as to request council officers investigate feasibility of installing a service road in this location, which would provide a much safer outcome for access. I would encourage the applicant to revisit with council officers to discuss opportunities that will address these issues and provide a much better outcome for the community of Grantville. We're all aware that affordable housing is required in Bass Coast Shire and quite urgently required. However, I agree with Councillor Leserve in identifying that having private waste collection cost through a body corporate is an added cost that, might simply be out of reach of people who are looking at our affordable housing. So I will be supporting Councillor Leserve's recommendation on this application. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Halstead. Any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Tassari.
If I can, Mr. Mayor, just seek clarification of the planning department, who I'm guessing are listening. Just like to know, has the developer been communicating with our planning department to come up with this result, and was this the the access in, is it wide enough to allow emergency vehicles into the development?
Captain, Mr. Sturton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm sorry, Councillor Tassari. So it was you're after whether or not emergency vehicles can access the site?
One was, is the access into the development wide enough to allow emergency vehicles to come in and turn?
I'd have to take that on notice. I don't believe the turning circles at the end would be sufficient, though. The council waste trucks can't get down, so it'd be the same for a fire vehicle as well, I'd imagine.
And has the developer worked with the planning department to come up with this development that they've put forward?
As the planning department have indicated that it's not an ideal outcome. So the conversations that have been had are very much in the next stage of this development, which would be the subdivision of the lots. But what's before us at the moment is the consideration of a development plan.
Do you wish to speak? Okay, Councillor Lark.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to focus on like I agree with what's been said this afternoon. I just wanted to focus on point 3 of the alternative motion, which states the proposed private road results in a poor community outcome by burdening future landowners with the need for a private waste collection agreement. The community of Inverloch have experienced that recently with a particular development, and there's a lot of angst in the community regarding a similar sort of development that has come about, with so much so that landowners are taking their rubbish bins from outside their property to other roads to endeavour.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Lang.
While I fully respect the concerns that Councillor Lark has about the waste collection in Inverloch, I fail to see how that's relevant to the motion and the debate.
I can see, Councillor Lang, how this would be an example of the reason why you wouldn't go with the situation that's being proposed. So I'll allow some latitude, Councillor Lark. But I think we've got the point. So, but you might like to finish that point.
Yeah, I simply reiterate that the private waste collection agreement is a poor community outcome.
Thank you, Councillor Lark. Any other councillor wish to speak to this motion? If not, Councillor Lasserve.
Nothing further to add, Mr. Mayor. I put it to the vote. Thank you.
Okay, those in favour? Those against, that's carried. That brings us to H2 Growing Suburbs Fund, and I call on Mr. Box to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to seek authorisation from Council to progress 5 grant applications through the Victorian State Government's Growing Suburbs Fund. These projects from across Bass Coast will provide our rapidly growing region with the facilities we need to live well and thrive. They range from play spaces to community cinema infrastructure to enhanced streetscapes. The projects are highly deliverable within the timeframes and represent a positive impact on Council's future budget. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Box, is there a councillor to move and a councillor to second the motion? Councillor Rooks and Councillor Lang. Councillor Rooks.
Thank you, Mayor Whelan. These are great community projects spread out across the Shire that we're going to be applying for with the Growing Suburbs Fund. I did some maths and I hope it's accurate, but the total amount that Council will be putting in for these applications is around 250,000 and we're seeking 3.11 million. So it's a ratio of $12.50 in return for every dollar that we put in. So it would be a great outcome if we're successful in getting some or all of these Growing Suburb Funds applications. Thank you for the staff for putting this work together.
Thank you, Councillor Rooks. Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Nothing further to add.
Any councillor wish to speak on this motion? If not, Councillor Rooks, put it to a vote.
Yes, please.
Those in favour? That's carried. Brings us to the draft H.3 Draft Local Laws, and I call on Ms Kennedy's report, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is to present the final draft Bass Coast Shire Council Local Law Number 1, Neighbourhood Amenity 2022 to Council for adoption. The local law came into operation in July 2012 and will cease to operate on the 25th of July 2022. Council is required to adopt a new local law prior to the revocation date. The draft local law covers a range of diverse topics from unsightly land, roadside and footpath trading, planting on nature strips to building sites. It empowers council to respond to local issues and protect public and private spaces, as well as the community's health and safety. Public consultation was undertaken over a 4-week period, and we had 786 people visit the local law review page on Council's Engage Bass Coast website, and we received 33 submissions. A significant change to the local law is the inclusion of a section on significant and protected trees and a section relating to short stay accommodation, which was previously registered under the Public Health and Wellbeing Act. The final draft Bass Coast Shire Council law has been developed with significant contributions from council officers, councillors, key stakeholders and community members to ensure that it is relevant and representative of the community needs. It has undergone external legal review with certification provided as required under the Local Government Act 2022. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Ms Kennedy. Do I have a councillor to move and a councillor to second that? Is that, I think it was a different action. Councillor Rooks and Councillor Lasserve. Councillor Rooks.
Thank you, Mayor Whelan. And thank you for that introduction, Ms Kennedy. Yes, as Ms Kennedy said, it's been about 10 years between the old local laws and this new one that we're hopefully going to endorse today, which is probably too long with the way that our world is, with new technology coming in all the time and communities' expectations changing so rapidly. So I hope that our reviews happen more regularly than 10 years from here on in. With so many, with the time being so long between reviews, there are 16 new clauses which are in the local laws and also 16 major amendments to existing clauses. So there's a huge amount of work that's gone in, and I do recognise the extensive consultation that's been done. I do want to just mention the short-term accommodation, which is, as Ms Kennedy said, a new section in the local laws, and I think it's a very important section that people have been asking for many years. I know that from a point of view from the Island Ward, and I assume that's across the Shire as well. We're going to regulate the short-term accommodation better, making sure people are registered so we can follow them better for their noise and most importantly for their waste. We know we have a bit of an issue with people not recycling properly when it comes to holiday, to people coming down and staying during the holiday periods in our Shire. We're asking them as part of these new local laws to have a waste plan, and I think that's going to go a long way to reducing the amount of issue we have with our red bin collection over the summer period. So I thank the community and the staff for working on this local laws and for the outcome that's in it.
Thank you, Councillor Rooks. Councillor Lasserve.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, the draft local laws has been out to community consultation. It's been on Engage Bass Coast website online. It's been surveyed and had submissions to it. There's been a number of councillor briefings on it. There's had an external legal review was completed with the certificate provided. There have been several new clauses in it which were highlighted on page 38 of the report. The local laws has been reviewed and I think it's been simplified, which is really important because it can be quite a big document. In fact, I think it's been reduced in pages, so it is a lot simpler to read. I'm happy to, be in favour of the recommendation. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lasserve. Any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? You nearly bought a house there, Councillor Tassari.
Sorry, Mr Mayor.
No other councillor. Councillor Rooks, do you wish to? Oh, hang on, a late bidder there. Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just wish to congratulate the officers and the team that put the local laws together. It was a mammoth task. I think the They've done a very good job. As councillors know, I was going to move an amendment to 78.1, which I will not do now after discussing with Ms. Kennedy the amendment, and I will discuss that with our lawyers to see how we go forward. In response to Councillor Rook's statement that the waste management program will reduce the red bin pickups, I do wish you strength to your arm, and we'll see how that all comes together, because we both know that the landfill bin is a problem. But I do commend the local laws to councillors passed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Any other councillor wish to speak? If not, Councillor Rooks, do you wish to reply?
Just one question, if I could, of Ms. Kennedy. Hopefully today the local laws do get endorsed, but I believe then there's a process before they actually take effect. They have to become gazetted or something, and what the time frame will be for that.
Yes, through the Mayor. That, if adopted today, that will be gazetted. Hopefully it will either, I think, be next Thursday, because it has to go to the Government Gazette on Tuesday for it to be published by Thursday, and it'll come into effect. One thing we will be doing, though, for the two new clauses that we are introducing, we will spend a bit of time making sure we get the comms and the processes set up, and spend a bit of time with the community to understand roles and responsibilities before enforcing those. So they won't be enforced until the 1st of January 2023, to allow us and the community time to make sure we've set it up for success as best we can.
Thank you, Ms. Kennedy. Councillor Rooks, you happy with that?
Yep, happy to put it to a vote now.
We'll put it to a vote. Those in favour? That's carried. That brings us to page 4, update to library agreement with MYLI, My Community Library Limited. Ms. Kennedy, to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to seek council consideration of the admission of a new member council to MYLI and a variation to the local agreement, which includes a new funding formula. In July 2021, all 3 member councils of West Gippsland Libraries unanimously supported the establishment of MYLI as a not-for-profit entity and charity to continue to deliver library services across the region. The transition is now in its final stages, and the MYLI board, in consultation with Russell Kennedy lawyers, have identified 2 suggested amendments that require council approval. The first is to amend an inconsistency between the council-adopted MYLI constitution and the novated library agreement. The second is to amend the funding formula table in Schedule 3 of the novated library agreement, and this will ensure that no council is worse off with a new member joining. The report also outlines MYLI's transition journey, innovations, details about the amendments, and thorough review and analysis undertaken by the MYLI board to date. All 3 councils are considering the request sought by this report. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Kennedy. You can have a councillor to move and a councillor to second the report. Councillor Lang. Councillor Lasserve. Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Part of this recommendation is procedural, so that both the novated contract that the Basco Shire Council has, as well as the MYLI Constitution, which Council has already approved previously in the earlier stages of the transition from MYLI, from a library corporation into a not-for-profit entity. That part is mainly procedural, and it's to ensure that there is alignment within all of the proper processes and governance regulations for the new entity for MYLI. And the second portion is also about a changing of the funding formula so that we can actually take advantage of being a really trailblazing not-for-profit library entity and hopefully get some new member councils on board. But the other added benefit is that we will be able to, and should we in the future receive new council members, we will be able to expand our revenue base and access and reinvest those into our libraries without an additional cost to Basco Shire Council. So I would wholly recommend this motion be supported by councillors. It is the next step in this journey that we are on. As the Deputy Chairperson of MYLI, I have been part of this transitional process and been representing both the interests of the community and also as a library user as well, in my role and as a councillor. So I think that this will allow us to continue to punch well above our weight and position us even better to allow for new members and better service delivery to our community.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Councillor LaServe.
Say it, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor LaServe, you're on mute.
Okay, thank you. This transition has been happening for 2.5 years now. So the MYLI board have been working with other council partners, with lawyers to make this smooth transition. It's in its final stage, and I think this recommendation just really seeks to identify those 2 amendments which council's required to endorse for those changes. So I'm happy to second the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor LaServe. Any other councillor wish to speak to this? Councillor Holstead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Firstly, I'd like to congratulate Councillor LaServe and Councillor Lang for the work that they've done as being our representatives on this new not-for-profit organisation. I know it's taken a lot of work over the last couple of years, and I think that once again, Bass Coast is trailblazing. It's my understanding through Councillor Lang that there are other local governments who are beating down the door to try and gain access to this setup. So I congratulate them for that. But Mr. Mayor, before I offer my support for the recommendation, I do wish to express my disgust at what's happened with our public library funding over the years. The reduction in funding has forced local governments to seek alternative arrangements in an effort to continue providing this service to our communities. And we have seen services cease under the new structure. For example, the library bus in the Bass Coast Waterline was one of them. Prior to the 1980s, public libraries were funded by the state governments to the tune of 80% of the funding. And by 1980, this had dwindled to just 50%. And consecutive state governments have continued to reduce funding so that local governments now provide 80 or more % of the funding for their community libraries. In Bass Coast, we're actually providing 85%. The state now offers through the Public Libraries Funding Program and further through their Living Libraries Infrastructure Fund that councils are having to apply for, remembering that when councils apply for grants, they have to be prepared to also contribute funds. Over the years, the state contribution toward running costs has equated to no more than 20%. This has been another blatant cost shift by the state government and another bitter pill for local governments to swallow. Currently, Bass Coast's contribution through the new system of MYLI was 1.92 million in 21-22 and is fast approaching the 2 million mark with a 1.94 million contribution as part of our 22-23 budget. In the 21-22 year, the state contributed just 15% at $287,635, and we're yet to find out what the 22-23 state budget to MYLI will be. The Victorian state government have refused to apply CPI increments based on population.
Councillor, I'll ask you to wrap up, please.
Just a little bit longer, Mr. Mayor, and have chosen to use a flat allocation rate of 2%. This equates to a huge cost to our ratepayers. It is well documented that libraries contribute significantly to improving education outcomes, and I would argue significant benefits to the health and well-being of our communities. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to put these points forward, Mr. Mayor. And although I will support this recommendation, I encourage the MYLI board to continue their efforts to secure a higher level of funding through the state government, who should be contributing more than they do today. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Given some latitude there, so thank you very much for that. Councillor, any other councillor wish to speak? If not, Councillor Lang, do you wish to reply?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't want to dredge up the past with I do want to acknowledge that there are some, we're always strongly advocating for funding, and it's also excellent that our Chief Executive Officer for MYLI is actually the President of Public Libraries Victoria. So she's in an excellent position to be advocating for additional funds. We have not actually had a reduction in services, as Councillor Holstead pointed out. In fact, I would say that we have had an increase in services. We had $900,000 contributed from the state government to the construction of the Cows Cultural Centre Library, which is currently under construction and will provide a brand new library. We have a new library in San Remo, and we also have a new library in Grantville, which is serviced much more regularly than the mobile bus service was able to provide, and has seen an increase in membership to that library and an incredibly large membership growth within the San Remo new library service. I'll be the first one to advocate that our community does need new libraries, but we really do need to understand that the increase in funding that Bass Coast Shire has contributed is only a 1.5% variance on the 1.884 million that was paid in the 2020 to 21 financial year. That is well within the 1.75% rate cap. So the budget that we continue to fund as a council
I'll ask you to wrap up, Councillor Lang.
Very economical, and but it's also, I do acknowledge that we need to continue to advocate for funding from the state governments. And I would also encourage other councillors to support this motion so that we can have a much more consistent constitution in addition to our novated contract and updated funding formula.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Those in favour? That's carried. Righto. That brings us to H.5 Proposed Road Discontinuance, Back Lane, Walker Street, Dalyston. Ms. Borley, to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to recommend Council commencing statutory procedures to discontinue the Back Lane, Walker Street, Dalyston, and dispose of the land from the road to the surrounding property owner. The recommendation is consistent with Council's Road Discontinuance and Sale Policy 2020, as the road is not reasonably required for general public use and has no strategic value for Council. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Borley. Can I have a councillor to move and a councillor to second? Councillor Kent. Councillor Tassari. Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll make this a real quick one. This is a parcel of land, 225 square metres, an old road reserve that runs between 5 blocks of land. We're only voting today for the council to take the next step to offer that parcel of land at a fair price to the landowners. It's of no use to anybody else. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. Councillor Tassari.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with the words just spoken by Councillor Kent. It's a start of a process on a parcel of land that is no value apart from the property owners surrounding it. So, yeah, I agree with this recommendation.
Does any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? If not, Councillor Kent, happy to put the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor.
Are those in favour? That's carried. Councillor Lang, were you wishing to speak? That's carried. This is H.6, Review of Hire Fees Community Facilities. Ms. Borley, to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to present a set of hire fees for adoption to come into effect from 1 September 2022. The hire fees are for 10 community facilities managed directly by council or through community asset committees, and seek to bring consistency across facilities and increase accessibility. Consultation was completed with the relevant community asset committees and regular hirers, and positive feedback was received.
The set of hire fees is recommended to council for adoption. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Ms Borley. Can I have a councillor move and a councillor second the motion in the agenda? Councillor Rooks and Councillor Lang. Councillor Rooks.
Point of order,
Thank you,
Mr
Mayor.
Chairman. Before we go there. Mr Mayor, I can't see Councillor Surf. Has she left the meeting?
Yes. At the moment, that's right. Sorry, Councillor Rooks.
Thank you, Mayor Whelan. This is a great piece of work that the council staff have done. We've got 10 community halls that over the past have had various approaches to their hire fees and their hire agreements. And this brings some consistency and transparency to the community so they can understand what's involved if they want to get a community hall hired out. There's a commercial rate and a community rate, which I think is fantastic to look after those community groups. And it's also possible to get a waiver under certain conditions that you can apply for, which I think is a good benefit too for the community groups. So I fully endorse this recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Rooks. Councillor Lang.
Just wanted to quickly reiterate and highlight that council has worked very closely with the community, the committees of management in order to achieve the fee outcomes.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Halstead. You got a first name there.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The introduction of these committees by the state government's amendments to the Local Government Act left councils with the role of their introduction. Formerly known as Section 86 committees, council has successfully transitioned them to community asset committees through a reconstitution and an update of delegations and guidelines. These changes have required significant administrative and financial support by council to ensure the changes to the Local Government Act are being adhered to. Western Port Ward holds most of these committees, where over the past 2 years, many concerns have been raised with councillors regarding the state government requirements. The work of council officers through a comprehensive consultation process with current community asset committees and regular users of the facilities is really appreciated. These assets are essentially there to provide a central place for community members to come together, and in most, if not all cases, the community groups themselves using these facilities have contributed significant to the build, renovations and maintenance over the years, both financially and in kind. They are rightly adopted as centralised extensions of residents' homes for all to use. To have consistency across the Shire in relation to the fee structure is welcomed, and it is appropriate that application for a fee waiver is also made available for those groups who, for example, offer charitable service to the wider community. I will be supporting the recommendation. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Halstead. Councillor Kent, did you wish to speak?
Thank you, Mayor, but I think Councillor Halstead took most of my words. Can I just put in there that over the last 6 years, issues that I've found that have been raised with the hall hire can be attributed to communication. So I just push back onto the community. If you have a problem, please communicate with the council instead of letting it just bubbling away there. We can solve any future problems, and I think our outcome today has gone a long way to achieving that too. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. Does any other councillor wish to speak on this motion? If not, Councillor Rooks, do you wish to reply? Shall we put it to a vote?
To a vote, thanks.
Those in favour? That's carried. This brings us to H.7 Governance Rules and Election Period Policy 2022. We'll pause while Councillor Sassari leaves the room. And I call on Ms Borley to introduce, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The governance rules primarily set out how council meetings and delegated committee meetings will be governed, and the election period policy sets out how council will meet the requirements of the Local Government Act 2020 during local, state and federal elections. Practical application of the Governance Rules 2020 identified opportunities to clarify process, address inconsistencies, and strengthen good governance practices during election periods. The draft Governance Rules 2022 and Election Period Policy 2022 were placed on public exhibition for a period of 4 weeks, and Council received submissions from 10 individuals and 2 community organisations. The draft Governance Rules 2022, including the Election Period Policy 2022, were subsequently updated and are recommended to Council for adoption. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Ms Borley. Can I have a councillor move and a councillor second the motion? Councillor Rooks.
I'd like to put an alternate motion forward, please.
Okay, we'll get that alternative motion on the screen. Okay, Councillor Rooks, just tell us what this is about without speaking to the alternative.
It's about removing public question time from council meetings.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second to that alternative resolution motion? Councillor Kent. Councillor Rooks.
Thank you, Mayor Whelan. Historically, public question time at council meetings was an important occasion for community members to meet and ask questions of the council personnel. However, with telephone use and the introduction of email and social media, there are many alternatives to question time at council meetings. Here at the Bass Coast Shire, we are no different. Outside of questions at council meetings, for each of the last 2 months, our council has dealt with approximately 5,500 requests. Most of these requests come in via the website, email, and over the phone. Some use Facebook. The customer service team manages a large knowledge base of the wide-ranging council services to quickly and efficiently manage customer contacts and allow the specialist team to concentrate on their core business. This is demonstrated through a 77% resolution of requests at first contact. It's an incredible customer service offer that is both wide-ranging and efficient. Another important feature of these requests is all 5,500 responses are provided without the input of councillors. These requests may be basic questions, complex questions, registrations, formal submissions, general feedback, or simply making a payment. Questions submitted to a council meeting is the other way to communicate with council. However, due to advances in technology, having to wait for a monthly meeting and the restrictions placed on such questions, these queries are by far the most inefficient method for both council and the community member. Though these questions are reviewed by councillors, they can be of the same standard of questions that thousands of others submit each month. However, they are given an unwarranted high level of status and a disproportionate amount of time just because they form part of a council meeting. For me, comparing public question time at council meetings relative to the rest of our customer service offer is like comparing a milk bar to a supermarket. In the old days, milk bars were fabulous and serviced our needs. However, as times have changed, the milk bar has disappeared and it's provided a limited range and short opening hours. Milk bars have been superseded by supermarkets that offer a far wider product range, increased opening hours, and a focus on customer service. There is a shrinking audience that still use the old system. Just 0.27% use the milk bar system. 99.73% of our community use the supermarket. Furthermore, during the last 18 months, of those 0.27%, 7 individuals have asked 45% of those questions. This data clearly shows that few people use the archaic milk bar system. Everyone else has moved on. I'm pleased to say this proposed change is already supported by the community as people are now using the alternative options, utilising the high level of customer service offered. This is an evidence-based decision that clearly demonstrates reasons for change, and I trust the other councillors can join me in this alternate motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rooks. Councillor Kent.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Councillor Rooks is very passionate about this, and this is why I agreed to second this alternative motion. I believe wholeheartedly in the right of speech, and I do agree with the points raised by Councillor Rooks in regards to some questions could be answered by alternative means provided by the council. What I support, though, is the right to put the questions there in the first place. I believe that the community should look at their questions and consider the alternative avenues provided by council, but I support the right for the communities to submit questions. So I won't be supporting this alternative. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. Any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that I would like to underscore what Councillor Rook said about technology and the fact that the community are perfectly entitled to be very public about the responses they receive from council and council staff when they are receiving information from council. That is not restricted to question time, and that ability is available to the community at any particular time. So in that sense, I do understand, I do see how it is really inefficient for public question time to continue in this way. There are at least 9 different ways and different touch points that the community can actually ask questions. Our phone numbers as councillors are posted on the website, and we have our business cards that we distribute widely. And I know that all the councillors here bend over backwards and travel all over the countryside to meet publicly and also not as publicly with residents and speak to them on the phone regularly. And a lot of the times our phones run off the hook, and we do answer them, and we answer all of the as many inquiries as we can receive, but we also make sure that responses are provided in a timely way. So I will be supporting this. I think that also I do want to also promote the Engage Bass Coast website, which lists all the projects and consultation that we have with the community, and it does give really, really current, up-to-date information. And I think that the analogy between the milk bar and the supermarket was an excellent way of describing this. And I don't want to spend a disproportionate amount of time on a very small portion of the community when we have so many people that need to be represented and be treated as fairly and equally as those that are receiving their questions through public question time.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Councillor Lark.
Thank you, Mayor Whelan. I think this is about not only transparency and opportunity, but choice. I like the choice of going to the Hunter Street Wonthaggi Milk Bar on occasions, and on other occasions going to the supermarket. So choice for me is a community asset. So I won't be supporting Councillor Rook. I think it's too narrow thinking in terms of opportunities for people to make a choice to go down whichever path that they want. I'll actually go to the milk bar tonight and get some lollies and some bread and some milk, rather than going to the supermarket after this discussion today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lark. Any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, fellow councillors and members of the public watching this meeting, this alternative motion is an attack on one of the fundamental tenets of our democratic system going back to the Grecian days. It goes to the core values of accountability and transparency. I will not entertain a bunker mentality that changing the words must to not at all, I thought it might even be may, will be seen by the community. We are the elected representatives of the ratepayers. We are answerable to them. The monthly open council meeting is a forum where the ratepayers can formally question us on the record. To suggest that the same 6 people always ask a question is irrelevant. There are many examples where an issue incites many in the community to write questions for the monthly council meeting. Let us not forget the outcry over the wind turbine or the car ferry. There are certain tasks that just need to be factored into the costs of being a Shire council. The agenda and question time for a monthly open council meeting is one of them. To suggest that question time can be dealt with offline is unacceptable. Using that same logic, why are we meeting at all? The monthly council meeting could be truncated into a series of flying minutes. The CEO just emailed the items requiring a council decision and the councillors email back yes or no. That would be a preposterous situation and I believe is countenanced by no one. I urge councillors to vote against this alternate motion. Question time is a must, not a maybe.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Holstead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With such an important alternative, I think it's wise that I make a statement. I do agree that Councillor Rooks has raised some very valid points. And I do agree with Councillor Lang in that the comparison of the milk bar and the supermarket's probably a reasonable comparison. But as part of that argument, I would argue that, you know, gone is the friendly, more personal customer service with the closure of our milk bars and the moving to supermarkets. It might be quicker, it might be faster, but that more personal customer service has been lost. The ability to buy your 2-cent lolly, you know, 5 of those, 10 of those. I remember those days with fondness, and I think we have to allow for our community to make that choice. I agree with Councillor Lark that there should be a choice for our community in how they approach council. I also agree with Councillor Bauer in that people have a right to be able to ask questions of their councillors in this forum. So it has been a tough decision because I do think that Councillor Rooks has put up a very good argument, but I am a believer of access in every opportunity for members of the public to speak with their council. Therefore, I will not be supporting the alternative. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Holstead. That expires our list of speakers. Councillor Rooks, would you wish to reply?
Yeah, just a couple of things if I could, Mayor Whelan. I think the community would like our council to be as efficient as possible. And the best way to do that is for our community to try to contact us through 9 other areas, which I'm going to quickly mention. And these 9 areas respond to councillors' concern that people won't have the right of speech, because they do. It will respond to Councillors Holstead concern that they won't have personal customer service, because I can demonstrate that. And Councillor Lark's issue with transparency and choice, because they'll have that as well. So there are 9 other areas that the community can contact us councillors and council officers. Online, through the Engage Bass Coast, Facebook. We have online in-person workshops when we develop strategies, that's face-to-face. We have reference groups and committees of council. We have other interest groups that we contact, sports groups, arts groups, the youth. We have community members that contact councillors all the time. And all council feedback is put through a tracking system so we can pick up any themes. We have councillors attend meetings in the communities, as do council officers. And the communication department also focuses on the social media sites to pick up any issues that are out there. There are plenty of ways for us to listen to the community. What's important about the council meetings is that we should be focused on strategic issues, high-level policy issues, and not operational questions. So for me, the arguments for removing public question time and directing our community to our customer service team are very strong. And this direction is supported by our constituents already, with 99.73% using this method. And I hope my fellow councillors support the community on the change that is already happening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rooks. Those in favour of the alternative.
Point of order. Sorry, a point of order. May I ask a question of Ms. Borley?
That's not a point. The question isn't a point of order. What's your point of order, Councillor Bauer?
Point of order. Does this then become the motion, then we debate the motion, or is this does this close the
This is the motion at the moment, Councillor Bauer. We vote on this. This passes it. Yeah.
Okay, then I'd like to
in the event that it doesn't pass, you can't move an amendment. We've already closed the debate. But I'll just explain procedurally what happens from here. If this is lost, if this is one that becomes, we move on to the next agenda item. If it is lost, we then deal with the agenda item, I'll then seek further mover and seconder. Thank you. Those in favour? Those against? That's lost. I'll call on a councillor to move the motion as presented in the agenda item. Seconder.
Mr. Mayor, can I just ask a question? If another councillor has an amendment to put up, would this be the time for them to do so?
Yes.
Well, an amendment is done to the motion before the council. We don't have a motion before the council at the moment.
Now we have a recommendation, and if another councillor has an amendment to that recommendation, would this be the time to do it?
We need to move the motion first, so we have a motion to actually deal with. So I'm looking for a councillor to move and a councillor to second. Councillor Kent, a seconder. Councillor Bauer. Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Mayor Whelan. Look, I'm just going to be straight up with this. We've had the prior voting. I'm all in favour of these government rules and election period policy as they stand. And I'd like to congratulate the council officers for the hard work that they've put in. I know that there's been quite a bit of feedback and they've had to cross their T's and dot their I's for this one. I look forward to what Councillor Bauer may have in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. Councillor Bauer.
Thank you. I'd like to move an amendment to the motion. And the amendment is...
Just hang on. I'm just
Yeah,
not sure
point of
this procedurally correct. I don't think a seconding. You're putting it on the table.
This is his opportunity to speak to the motion. So if
Speak to the motion, but not to move it.
if he wishes to move an amendment, he has to do it when he's speaking to the motion. So
Okay, sorry, Councillor Bauer. This is basically what we're doing at the moment is through the mover and the seconder is putting the business before council. In speaking to the motion, I've been informed you can move that amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Firstly, I'll say that...
Point of order, Mayor. Point of order.
Councillor Lark?
Councillor Bauer has to second the motion first before going on.
Yes, what I've been informed, Councillor Lark, in terms of the point of order is that in speaking to the resolution, puts it on our business, and then he can move the amendment as part of that.
motion has been moved and seconded.
Yep.
Councillors are now speaking to the motion.
So basically it's moved and seconded, Councillor Lark, and now we're resolution. So Councillor Bauer, I gave you a bit of a, unless it's a point of order, Councillor Holstead, is it a point of order?
Well, I'm hoping it's a point of order, Mr. Mayor. My understanding of the procedure is that we have a when Councillor Rook's amendment.
Unless you're moving it as a point of order, I'm not taking it.
Well, I need to ask governance if this is correct, Mr. Mayor. My understanding is the recommendation is before us. Councillor Rook's moved an amendment which failed, which should have taken us back to the recommendation. When Councillor Bauer wished to make an amendment, he should have moved the recommendation with an amendment, as Councillor Rooks did, and then that becomes the debate. Am I correct in saying that through you, Mr. Mayor, to Ms. Borley?
Well, I'm taking it that we haven't had an alternative motion, but you can move an amendment to the motion. What happens is...
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Let me speak, please, Councillor Lang. You can hold your point of order. I'm dealing with one point of order at a time. And so, Councillor Holstead, to explain this, we're putting it on the business paper by moving and seconding it. My advice is that in speaking to the resolution, we already have it moved and seconded, and speaking to the resolution as seconder, Councillor Bauer can then move his amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Lang.
I just wanted to clarify that Councillor Rooks moved an alternative rather than a motion with an amendment.
I don't need any clarification, Councillor Lang. Unless you're moving a point of order, then you're out of order. So I'll go back to Councillor Bauer.
All right, in the interest of expediency, I'll just move my amendment, as I'm saying is 54.11. I would like to see the word limit raised from 50 words to 200 words. Councillors have 3 minutes in which to introduce an issue to the chamber as the mover of a motion. That is the equivalent to approximately, oh, you've got
Hang on, Councillor Bauer. Just hold, so just indicate you're moving an amendment. We'll put that up onto the screen. And then you just tell us what it's about, without speaking to it, what you're trying to achieve, which is actually to extend the word limit, I see.
Yes, that's the basis of the
Okay, is there a second to Councillor Bauer's amendment?
Come on, guys.
Mayor, can I ask you?
Okay, Councillor Bauer?
Hang on, is Bruce seconding?
Yes, you were seconding, I take it, Councillor Kent?
Yes, but with a question to a council officer, if I could.
Can we take them separately? Does your question determine whether you'll second it or not?
Yes, it does.
All right, okay. I've forgotten even who the officer is now. Councillor Borley. Just demoted you, Ms. Borley.
Can I go ahead with the question, Mayor?
Yes, please.
Thank you for that, Mayor Whelan. It's just in regards to the 200 words. Although the submitter could put in a question with up to 200 words, that still doesn't stop us cutting that down and making it a short version at council. Am I correct in saying that?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, if council increased the word limit to 200, then those 200 words would need to be read out at the council meeting.
Mayor Whelan, unless Councillor Bauer is prepared to remove that one, I'm not prepared to second.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Kent.
I withdraw the amendment, Mr. Mayor.
You can return to speaking to the motion, if you like.
Yeah, I think, first of all, I want to congratulate Ms. Borley and her fellow officers in creating a new governance rules. I think they're very good in many places. The only thing I'd like to see then, and this is not an amendment, it's just a statement, I'd like to see a new 60.3 where we actually record the abstentions, because abstentions are a formal way of voting, even though it's recorded as a no vote in a division or in a normal vote. But otherwise, I support the H7 and commend it to the chamber.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Lark?
I wish to move an amendment to Rule 9.2.
Okay, well, I've learned from my last experience, Councillor Lark, so I take it we have the amendment. We'll put that up, and if you just tell us what it's about without speaking to it, please.
Thank you. I think it's self-explanatory. It's removing the word may and inserting the word shall.
Okay, thank you. Is there a seconder to that amendment?
Yes.
Councillor Holstead. Councillor Lark.
It's a simple one. The Rule 9.2 states meetings may be conducted electronically, providing a live stream is available through Council's website where legislation allows. The amendment simply inserts the word shall instead of may to read meetings shall be conducted electronically, providing a live stream is available through Council's website where legislation allows. From a access and inclusion perspective, I think rather than a discretionary clause, it would be more appropriate to have a clause which says if we have the live stream available and legislation allows, then we go ahead with conducting electronically for the benefit of all councillors and others who may have an interest in this matter.
Thank you, Councillor Lark. Councillor Holstead.
Nothing further to add, Mr Mayor.
Okay. Any other councillor wish to speak to this motion? Councillor Rooks?
Yeah, the problem with this argument is if we were having a face-to-face meeting and the technology failed, then we can't go ahead with the meeting. And that came very close today with the technology that we had. And I don't think that's a good governance process in place to cancel a meeting just because the technology can't go ahead.
Thank you, Councillor Rooks. Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Mayor. The way I read the wording of that is that if the live streaming's available, so that if the live streaming becomes unavailable, I believe that there isn't a problem. We just go ahead with the meeting. Am I correct there? Could I get a clarification from a council
I'll put it back on the screen. It's for you to make up, the councillors to make up their minds on that. So can we have it? Hang on. Ms Borley's got something to add to this.
Councillor Kent, can I just clarify that what you're saying is your understanding is that if the live stream's not available, then the council meeting wouldn't continue?
My understanding of the wording is meetings shall be conducted electronically, providing the live stream is available. So that if the live stream drops out, it's not available, so it doesn't have to be conducted electronically.
That's correct.
But can still proceed in person.
That's right.
Hang on. We don't want to do this by committee. Ms Borley has the call.
Through you, Mr Mayor. If the meeting was set up as an electronic meeting and the live stream failed, councillors who were attending the meeting electronically would no longer be considered in attendance at that meeting as that amendment is proposed at the moment. So that could potentially create quorum issues.
Okay, Councillor Kent.
Yes, I would personally just think that's an issue you can attend to at the time.
Okay. So any other councillor wish to speak to the amendment? Councillor Lang.
I'm feeling extremely confused by this whole process, and I do feel like we've been working on these governance rules for quite a long time, and I understand that we've had some consultation with Councillor Rooks on his approach, and then but I'm really confused about how the when the shall is introduced, the meaning of that clause becomes extremely ambiguous, and I'm not sure it's going to achieve the access and inclusion that Councillor Lark is trying to seek, which I fully support. I think the may gives us a little bit more of leeway so that if these situations arise, and we know that they can happen, we do have a little bit of leeway in order to continue the meetings and be able to allow the people who may or may not be in attendance to understand it. It allows us to potentially upload the meeting in the future should the situation arise where there were technical problems. I just think the inclusion of shall is almost like a semantic change, but it does add a layer of confusion. I'm not sure if we're still arguing the other amendments. My understanding is we're discussing the amendment on the inclusion of the abstention, and my particular concern with that is...
Hang on, Councillor Lang, we're only discussing the substitution of the words shall for may.
Okay.
In the amendment.
Gotcha.
Yeah, keep going.
Oh, well, then I'll withdraw the other
You're
stuff.
happy, all right.
Yeah.
Is there any other councillor wish to speak to the amendment? If not, Councillor Lark in reply.
I have nothing further to add. I just think...
Okay, thank you, Councillor Lark. So we'll put that to a vote. Those in favour of the amendment? Against? Hang on. Those in favour, take your hands down. Take them down, please. Those in favour of the amendment? Against? That's carried. That becomes a substantive motion, and we continue, as I understand it, we continue debate on the governance rules and electoral matters with that amendment having taken effect. Okay, we're clear on that. So that's been dealt with. It's part of the, now becomes part of the substantive document that we're talking to. Any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Holstead.
Mr Mayor, just a question. Have we gone back to Councillor Bauer's amendment now?
No. He's filed for want of a seconder.
Okay, thank
So
you.
just let me be very clear then. What we're talking about is the motion in the agenda paper, which is to pick up the governance rules and election matters report. And now that report is on the table, but there has been one word substituted, shall, for the word may in the relevant section, which I can't remember. So we're clear on that? Okay. So do you wish to speak to it, Councillor Holstead? Okay. Any other councillor wish to speak to it? If not, I'll go back to Councillor Kent in reply and to explain to us what just happened.
Thank you, Mayor. I feel very apprehensive of saying anything, so I'll just go for a vote. Thank you.
All right, those in favour of the governance rules and election matters report? Those against? As carried. That brings us to H.8, appointments to council. Ms. Borley to introduce the report, please. Oh, hang on. Well, just hold, Ms. Borley. We better get Councillor Vasari back in the room. And just for those that have noticed, Councillor Lasserve isn't with us. She'd given us advice that she had to leave by 3 o'clock. So she's absent from the meeting now. We can proceed. We have Councillor Vasari resuming his seat anyway, so we'll resume with H8, appointments to council committees and external committees. Ms. Borley to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Council appoints the Mayor and councillors to council committees and external committees to meet its legislative obligations and to enhance its involvement in community activities and to advocate on behalf of the community. This report recommends Council appoint Councillor Halstead as the councillor representative to the Western Port Biosphere Reserve Committee and notes that the Gippsland Local Government Waste Forum and Gippsland Waste and Resource Recovery Group Board have fulfilled their functions and have ceased. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Borley. Can I have a councillor move and a councillor second the motion? Councillor Rooks, Councillor Bauer. Councillor Rooks.
Thank you, Mayor Whelan. Yes, this is a procedural matter to put Councillor Halstead into the role as council representative for the Western Port Biosphere Reserve. My name was up against it, which I put my name up last year in December, but due to health issues, I was unable to fulfil that role. So thank you, Councillor Halstead, for taking on the position.
Thank you, Councillor Rooks. Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just wish to add that I'm sure that Councillor Holstead will do a wonderful job in that position, and I fully support this motion.
Thank you very much. Any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? If not, we'll put that motion. Those in favour? That's carried. Brings us H9, Anderson Road Car Park Budget Revision. I ask Ms. Borley to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is to seek council approval for an increase of $316,000 in the gross budget allocation for the Anderson Road Car Park. Due to an enhanced understanding of project needs and the impact of global cost escalations, the total budget for the project increased to $676,000. Council was successful in obtaining a grant of $338,000 from the Victorian Fisheries Authority to offset the cost increase, which means that the net council contribution has decreased by $22,000. It is recommended that council approve the budget increase to enable the award of contract under delegation by the CEO. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Ms. Borley. Can I have a councillor move and a councillor second the report?
I wish to
Councillor
move
Brooks
deferral.
and councillor Bauer.
I wish to
pardon?
move a deferral. I wish to move
Well,
a deferral motion.
Well, we can't defer something we don't have on the agenda yet on our discussion. So I presume you're not seconded, councillor Bauer. So we have a mover, councillor Rooks, a seconder, councillor Tessari. Councillor Rooks.
Thank you, Mayor Whelan. Yeah, this is a funny one because, as explained by Ms. Borley, the original budget for this was $360,000, and then through some more detailed design work, we found there was some increased costs that the budget was going to go up. As a result of that, the council officers showed some initiative, and that was great in applying for a grant, and they were able to not only offset the additional amount, but end up reducing the original cost by $22,000. So this is a very good outcome for this Anderson Road car park. Thank you.
Councillor Tessari.
I just agree with everything Councillor Rooks just said, Mr. Mayor.
The other councillor wish to speak on the motion. Councillor Bauer.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I wish to move a motion to defer.
Motion to defer. Is there a seconder to that motion? Don't need it.
Mr.
Foreshadowing a motion in the event that this motion.
Hang on, I just hold for a minute.
So we have a mover and a seconder for the motion before council. So we can't move an alternative motion at this point. He would have to foreshadow an alternative should this motion fail.
Okay. That's an interesting one as an let me further clarify.
Why shadow?
They're all an alternative. I thought it was procedural.
Why don't you let Robin keep that, just say.
Okay, I'll call on Ms. Borley just to explain the situation for us, councillor Bauer.
Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we have a mover and a seconder for the motion before council. A motion to defer. This isn't a statutory report. Therefore, a motion to defer the report to a future council meeting is an alternative motion and would need to be foreshadowed should this motion fail.
Are you clear, councillor Bauer?
No,
So
point of order.
Point
of order. I've seen planning applications be deferred, and that there are statutory reports too coming from officers to the chamber.
I'm allowing Ms. Borley to answer that.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, no, that's not the correct process for the planning reports, councillor Bauer. With the planning reports, where a council decision is required to be on the record.
Okay.
So that's been moved as an alternative motion that the report be deferred to a future council meeting.
So, councillor Bauer, do you wish to foreshadow that as an alternative and then speak to this motion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'll do that as long as I got about 2 minutes, please.
So do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yeah, I'll speak against the motion, actually. The Victorian Fisheries contribution will be valid till December. Saving $22,000 does not offset the environmental vandalism of this project will cause in this form. We have an opportunity here. We can right or wrong. This project should not be built in its current form. Let's be brave. Let's defer this project. Let's redesign the car park, taking into account the community concerns and the welfare of the 3 gum trees and the banks here on the west end of the car park. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
That's it. All right. I was about to pull you up for relevance, but we'll move on. Any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? Not Councillor Rooks. Do you wish to speak and reply?
Vote's fine.
Okay, those in favour? Against? That's carried.
Call a division, please, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, we'll put that motion again. Those in favour? Councillor Lang, Councillor Whelan, Councillor Rooks, Councillor Tassari, Councillor Larkin, Councillor Kent. Those against? Councillor Bauer. The motion is carried. That brings us to statutory reports, and I request a councillor to move and a councillor to second that the motion that agenda items 1, 1, 1, 2 and 1, 3 be considered as a block.
Happy to do so.
Councillor Rooks and Councillor Kent. Those in favour? That's carried. And now, does any councillor wish to speak to any of the reports? If not, I call on a councillor to move and a councillor to second the resolution. Councillor Lang, Councillor Tassari, those in favour? That's carried. There is no urgent business, and that brings us to an announcement of the next meeting of council. The next council meeting will be held virtually on the 17th of August 2022, commencing at 1 p.m. Thank you for watching the live stream of council's meeting, and also for your indulgence and respect to the technical difficulties we had earlier. And the meeting will now be closed to the public and end today's live stream. And the meeting is closed. Thank you.